Well, hello there, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're safe and well. In this video I'll be reviewing the brand new DNT Optics Zulus version 2. Roll the titles. Well, the first thing I want to address is you may have realised this isn't my normal video release schedule, which is usually midday on a Friday. The reason that this is done today is because it's actually the launch day for this new product. So firstly, I'd just like to thank DNT Optics for putting their trust in me and giving me the exclusive to do this video review of the new version 2 Zulus on the day of its launch. What I'm going to do then is do this review in two parts. Firstly, for those of you who may not be familiar with the Zulus, I'll introduce this version 2 scope and show you the operation and the features. And then after that, for those of you who may have seen the Zulus before, I'll do a direct comparison between the version 1 and the version 2 so you can see what the updates have been. So first then, let's get on with it and stick it on the turntable and have a closer look, shall we? Like the original version 1, there are 4 models in the range. There are 2 base units. There's this one, which is the 3 to 12 times, and then there's the more powerful magnification 5 to 20 times, and then both of those are available as an R model, which includes the addition of a laser rangefinder and an internal ballistic calculator. What do you get in the box? Well, obviously you get the scope, you get a mandatory eye cloth, get the user manual, a quick start guide, USB-C lead to plug into the unit and plug it into your computer so you can access your videos. You get a Torx T25 Torx key because the mount that it comes with, which is 20 MOA mount, attaches to the unit with 4 Torx head screws and also the Picatinny attachment bolts Torx head as well. And you get an eye cup. Let's take a look at the external features. Starting from the front then, we've got the lens cap, which clips up, and that folds in 2 positions, fully back. It also rotates, so you can move that out of the way to the ideal position. Behind the lens cap is the focus for the scope, which is not too stiff. It's nice and smooth and a nice rough surface there, so you can get your fingers in to focus that quite precisely. And next to that, we've got the 850 nanometer infrared torch, and you've got the focus for the beam so that you can make the beam wider or narrower by rotating that on the front. On top, we've got the button panel, which we'll go into in more detail in a second. Off to the side, you've got this knurled and inset cap. There's actually an O-ring on this to keep it watertight when the cap's on. And if you remove that, you'll see there's your USB-C socket for connecting to your computer. You will notice on here that there's no socket for an SD card. This actually has a 32GB internal memory, which is why you need the USB attachment to access that memory. You can see attached with 4 screws that come with it. We've got the 20 MOA Picatinny mount, and it also is marked up with the correct torque for these bolts. And you'll see on the top here as well, 30 inch-pounds for those. As I've already mentioned, these are Torx head bolts. They're not your standard socket head bolts. And moving back to this section here with the throw lever, this is your zoom or magnification lever, and you see we've got the plus and minus mark here. So fully over to the left is your smallest magnification, which on this unit is 3 times, and then moving it round to the maximum to the right hand side following the plus sign there takes it up to 12 times on this 3 to 12 times. This lever is really nice and smooth. It doesn't move easily. You have to put a bit of force onto it, but it's not going to move on its own volition. So that works quite nicely. But one thing to be aware of, it still switches between set magnifications. So unlike a traditional glass scope, where as you move between magnification, it will progressively move up with the magnification. This, as you move it, you'll get to a point where the magnification will switch to the next setting, and then you move it a little bit more again and it will switch to the next setting. I'll show you what that looks like through the scope when we get to that point. Then we've got the cap again with an O-ring on it to keep it watertight to undo the battery compartment. And this takes a 71200 battery, which gives a quoted runtime of 10 hours. Now there's no internal battery. The whole unit and the IR torch is run from the single battery in this compartment. And then we get to the far end and we've got the ocular lens. And this is for adjusting the focus for the screen in the eyepiece. Because this being a digital scope, you're actually viewing a tiny screen inside, and this will adjust the focus so that the screen is clear. One of the benefits of this approach, obviously, is you haven't got to worry about your eye alignment. Because you're watching a screen, there's no parallax error at all. So that's all the main features on the scope. Then we'll just go over the control buttons. First button towards the front then is the power button. A long press of the power button will power the unit up, and you'll get a blue light showing here. If you give it a quick press after it's powered up, it will go into standby mode, and that little light will turn orange. And then another quick press and it'll go back into, it'll wake up and go back into full on power mode. Also use the power button later on when doing the one-shot zero, and that can be used to freeze the frame, but we'll talk about that when we go through the menus. The top button, quick press of that will change the colour of the reticle. There are 5 different reticle colours: red, green, yellow, black and white. And a long press of this button will take you into the on-screen menu. This button on the left then is the mode switch button. That will be switch between colour daylight mode and black and white nighttime mode. The button to the right of it is the picture in picture button. So a long press of that will switch the picture in picture on or off, and a short press will adjust the screen brightness. That's the eyepiece screen brightness between 5 different levels. And last but not least, the bottom button is the recording button, and a quick press of that will switch your recording on and off. Just a quick point, all of these button functions that I've just mentioned are in normal operation. These buttons do change their function once you're inside the menus, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. The only way I've found to record what you actually see through the scope is by putting a camera up to the eyepiece. So please excuse any movement in the camera footage when I'm pressing the buttons on the scope. So we're in normal operating mode. I put a whiteboard in front of the scope so that we can just see what's in the eyepiece. Just want to show you the standby mode quickly. So press the power button, go straight into standby mode, press it again, comes straight out. So not really any delay there. Go through the button functions again then. So the top button, press that, you can see quick press and the colour of the reticle changes. And if I do a long press, then the menu comes up, but we won't worry about the menu for the moment. I've just taken the whiteboard away from the front of the scope and put something colourful there just to show you the left button. So if I hold the left button down, if you listen, you heard that click and it switches to black and white, which is night mode. And if I hold it down again, long press, you'll hear the click again. And it's back to colour mode. Going over to the right button then, long press the right button, and you can see picture in picture appears. We've got the magnified version in picture in picture. I think it's 2 times the base magnification in there. And then long press again, and that will switch off. If you look down to bottom right hand side of the screen, if I do the short press, you'll see the brightness level comes up, level 2, 3, 4, and we're back to 5. And then last but not least, the bottom button, if I press that, you'll see that the recording comes up in the top left hand of the screen. And if I press it again, the recording stops. So that's all the normal operation buttons then that I've already shown you. Quick word about the function of the panel buttons before we move into the menus. I've talked about their what they do operationally with the unit, but they change, their use changes when you're actually in the menus moving around. And quite simply, just using the 4 buttons there, top and bottom is up and down, the left button is back, move back in the menu, and the right button is the OK button. So just remember that as we go through and look at the different menu options. A long press of the top button then will take us into the menus. We're here in the menus and there are 2 pages. So starting up at the top with the connection, if I press the right button, the OK button, you'll see that's for setting up the Wi-Fi, for switching the Wi-Fi on and off. We'll drop back and we'll go down to the next setting, which is 0 in. And if I go into that setting, you can see 10 profiles for 0 in, different pellets and different rifles. The next section there, you can freeze the screen using that setting for when you're setting to 0, but you can also press the power button, and you can see I've just quickly pressed the power button and the freeze is on. If I press the power button again, the freeze comes off. Then you've got your XY values for moving the cursor around to where your pellet landed, and you've got the save and exit. So we'll go down to the exit and press the right button to OK that. Now we want to go down to the next level, which is the reticle settings. So if I go into that and into the different reticles, you can see that we've got 9 different reticles, and we can hide the reticle completely if we want to just take some video without the reticle being in the way. So the one we're in at the moment, the first one is the MRAD reticle. Next is the MOA reticle, and then we go through the second focal plane reticles. So these reticles won't grow in size when you go through magnification, they will just maintain the same size and appearance. And going down through those, down to 9, to the hide, no reticle at all, and back up into the top. So we'll come back out of that menu, we'll come down to reticle colours. You can also set your colours in the menus here, but as I've shown you already, you can set these colours without coming into the menu. And we come back out to the next setting, down to the pip settings. At the moment, the picture in picture is off. You can use this to switch it on, but also, as I've shown you, you can turn picture in picture on and off outside of the menus. Then we've got the recoil activated recording. You can set this up so that the scope detects the recoil of a shot, and it will then record 10 seconds before the shot and 10 seconds after the shot. That's more for use for centre fire and rim fire rifles, not really for an air rifle, so I've got that switched off. Then you've got the image settings. There's 2 modes. We're currently in natural mode, and you can go down and set to enhance, colour enhance mode. We'll try and demonstrate that later on, see if we can notice the difference recording through the scope. So coming out of that, we'll go down, we go on to the second page. There's just 2 items. We've got the function settings. We go into those. You've got the auto power setting that I've got switched off. We've got loop recording. Now, if I go into that, we'll show you that you can either record continuously, which is what I'm doing at the moment. I've got it set to at the moment within the off position, or you can have it record separate little loops of video, much like a dash cam, in 1, 3 and 5 minute intervals. And next one, we've got the audio recording. That's just switching the audio on and off, and you can see that there's a little microphone symbol down by the DNT logo in the bottom corner to indicate that that's switched on. Gyroscope is for setting the cant and the elevation indicators that are at the bottom and the left side of the screen. IR torch, that's for setting the IR torch type in case you're using an external torch of a different type to the one that's fitted to the unit. And then we can set the screen brightness in the menus, but as I've shown you, you can also set screen brightness from outside the menus using those 4 function buttons. So come back out here and we go down to the last menu item, set the date and time, set the language, format the internal memory disk, restore to default settings, check what our available storage is on the scope. So your total storage is 28.8 gigabytes out of that 32 gig to store videos. And we come back down, and then finally gives you the version number so you can check what level of firmware that you've got installed on the scope. So that's the menu settings. To come out of the menu, hit the back button once, and we hit the back button again, and we're out of the menus. Just briefly back in the settings menu then, just to clarify, if this were an R model fitted with the laser rangefinder, between the reticle settings and the pip settings will be 2 additional menu items. The first would be the ballistic calculator, where you're able to turn the ballistic calculator on or off, put all of your ballistic data settings in, and choose your aiming method, either hold over or dial in. And then below that will be the LRF settings, and you can choose your ranging units, either meters or yards, and you can change the mode of ranging, whether the laser rangefinder ranges continuously or in single pulses. Right, let's have a look at some scope footage then. I've got the scope mounted on a mini tripod, so excuse the sort of like the movements and stuff as I adjust the controls. I'm also recording the audio through the scope as well, just to see what the quality's like. So we're looking at a target then that's out at 25 yards. And I'm going to pull the zoom round on the throw lever, and you'll see how the magnification jumps to the preset values. Go right up to 12 times. So you can see quite a sharp image actually. I've got some more targets set out at 40 yards. With some spinners and resettable targets and stuff, and I've got some chalk men. So we'll come back down through the range, and I'll move the scope across to make an adjustment. Just need to drop it down a little bit. There we go. Right, and we'll start zooming in on that one as well. Oh. Can't make it up. I'm going to get interrupted by the Spitfires again. Right, let's check the focus a little bit. And one thing I do notice, because the objective lens is quite small on this, the focus for the objective is very sensitive. And that's about it there. So as you can see, maximum magnification at 40 yards. You might notice a little tiny bit of pixelation around the edges, but that's not bad. That's perfectly usable. Come over to the grazing field just across the road from where I live, just to get some out in the open shots rather than just range shots. So we've got the cows that graze this field here. I've just laser rangefind them. They're just over 100 yards away, these cows. You can see on the lowest magnification, quite a nice clear shot. And what we'll do is we'll do a bit of zooming in. Up to 7.5 times. I've got the scope on the tripod, so that's why it's a bit moving around a bit. Just a bit easier than having it on a rifle. Go into maximum zoom. Now we're at 12 times there. So that's a cow at 100 yards, 12 times zoom. I think you can see pretty good quality. Let's look at the nighttime performance then. As you can see from the bottom right hand corner, this was taken at 10:27 p.m. This is colour daylight mode. It's pitch black out. I can't see this target, these targets that the scope's showing, and it's not producing any light. This is just the sensor capturing the available light when there doesn't look like there is any. So let's switch over to nighttime black and white mode. So this is in black and white on night mode. I'm looking at a couple of targets and some spinners at the end of the garden that I can't see with the naked eye because it's too dark. And you also notice that the IR torch isn't on at the moment. Zoom in, as to see, it gets very grainy as we go further in. So let's come back out and we'll switch the torch on. That's the first level of torch. We can adjust the focus of the beam, and that's narrow beam, and widen the beam out a bit more. So that's a wider beam. We'll zoom in. So it does get very grainy. Come back out again. And we'll go up through the levels of the IR brightness, see if it makes a difference. So it's the second level, third, fourth, fifth, and then we'll go to auto. And it will, I assume on auto that it works out the brightness for itself, and that's probably the best level. So you can see not a bad picture at night. So close in, showing, well, this is out at 50 yards, so probably the furthest that most people are going to want to shoot with a sub 12 air gun. So that's what the scope looks like in night vision mode. Time to compare the two versions then. Let's now take a look at the differences between the version 1 and the version 2 then. Here on the screen you can see that I've got the version 1 at the top and the version 2 below. I've just weighed them on my scales. The version 1, this is the R version with the LRF, and this comes in at 649 grams with the battery and the mount. Whereas the version 2, this is just the standard model without the LRF. This comes in a little bit more at 714 grams. So I guessed the LRF version is probably going to still be sub 800 grams, which is very light for a scope. Looking at the length then, I'm going to go to a measure to the end of the ocular. So I'll make that about 152, 153, and this is about 163, 164, so about 10 centimeters longer. Okay, you will notice the difference in length of the eye cup. That's the first thing that I want to mention. What they've done with this is that they've enhanced the eye relief, so you can see that the eye cup is longer on the version 2 compared to the version 1 to compensate. The eye relief for the version 1 is 45 millimeters. The eye relief for the version 2 is now 65 millimeters, so that makes it a lot easier for people to use on a recoiling rifle. I know people were using the V1 on a recoiling rifle, but depending on how much recoil, you know, that it could be a little bit dodgy and you could find yourself being clouted by the ocular, but not so now with the extended eye relief. You'll also notice, looking at this back end here, that the actual diameter of the ocular has been increased, so it gives you better target acquisition and sort of general visibility. So on the version 1, the ocular is 27 millimeters in diameter.
on the version 2 it's now 32mm in diameter. Moving up then to the right hand side, you notice on the version 1 we've got the Picatinny attachment there. What they've done on the version 2 is fitted a new enhanced Wi-Fi module in that position, and that will give you a faster and more stable Wi-Fi data transfer for sharing your videos and for viewing the videos on the phone app. Moving over to the left hand side then, if you ignore the LRF, you'll notice there the larger battery compartment on the version 2. I think I already mentioned the version 2 takes the larger flat top 21700 battery compared to the 18650 flat top from the version 1, which gives a predicted increase in battery life of an extra 2 hours. So now you're getting 10 hours of use on a battery in the V2 compared to 8 hours in the V1. Also notice, because of the increased diameter of the battery, the IR module on the V2 is slightly larger, and you can see that they've changed the way that the focus ring, the ridges on the focus ring, to make that easier to adjust the focus, the beam on your IR. Looking at the front end, nothing has changed there. The focus ring and the size of the objective is exactly the same. The cap's exactly the same. The only other thing to mention is probably jumped out at you straight away if you hadn't already noticed. The button panels on the top. On the V1, you've got the little painted symbols on the buttons, and on the V2 now they're moulded. And what they've done is they flipped the buttons 180 degrees. So on the V1 that you've got the power button at the bottom, and you've got the 4 menu buttons and operating buttons at the top. They flip that over, and I'm assuming that they've done that because obviously the power button, once you've switched it on, unless you want to go in and out of standby, you're not using that button during operation as much as these ones at the bottom. So you might as well move those further down so they're easier to get to with your fingers. So that's what I'm assuming the reasoning for that is. Okay, you might be used to feeling where the buttons are. You might be used to the operation in this format. But the only thing that's swapped over really is the record button and the menu entry button. They still work up and down exactly the same, irrespective of the other functions. So it's not really a biggie, to be honest. And in operation, it took me a while before I realised that they'd even done that, so I didn't really notice it. So what else have we got? We've got the new zoom control. On the version 1, you've got this little tiny wheel. I know some people were critical about that because they said it was difficult to use in gloves. So instead of having to move this little tiny thumb wheel, now you've got a proper zoom lever with a zoom control with a throw lever. One final improvement that you won't notice in this image is that the version 2 now has a larger and brighter display than the version 1. The version 2 comes with a 0.49 inch 3000 nit screen, whereas the version 1 had a 0.39 inch 1800 nit screen. Now nit, N-I-T, is just a value for how bright the screen is on things like phones and computer displays and monitors and things like that. And obviously the higher the number, the brighter the screen. So we've gone up from 1800 to 3000. Obviously, being brighter is going to provide you with a clearer and enhanced image for your viewing experience.
Couple of final distinctions to make between the two versions then before we wrap this section up. The first is to do with the menu structure. Now, the menu on the version 2 more closely aligns with what you'll find on the Thermite, and if you've watched my video on the Thermite multispectral scope, you'll see that there are a lot of similarities. Total departure from the menu system that was on the version 1. I'll show you a screenshot here, and I think that's an all-round improvement personally. And the second thing worth mentioning is to do with the resolution of the video. Now, if you watch a video recorded by both the version 1 and the version 2, they will both show up on replay as full HD 1080p, so that's 1920 by 1080 pixels. However, the version 2 actually records in full HD, so it's actually recording 1920 by 1080 pixels, whereas the version 1 only records 1800 pixels by 1080 pixels. So in order to display it as 1920, those 1800 pixels need to be stretched out slightly. So the definition won't be as good as on the version 2. Well, I guess we've reached the point where I have to draw some conclusions. So what do I think about this unit? Well, first thing I need to say is if you've seen any of my other videos, then you know that I try and be as honest as I can about what I think of these products. I'm not constrained by anybody. I'm free to say whatever I think. If I think it's bad, probably wouldn't review it in the first place. But even if when I do review stuff, I try and find some reasonable pros and cons, however sort of tiny they might be. But with this unit, to be honest, I'm really scratching my head. Honestly, really scratching my head to find something bad to say about it. If I'm going to mention some niggly cons, then I mean, the first would be the mount. This is the same mount as on the Thermite, and when I reviewed that, I don't particularly like these torque head screws. I move my scopes between rifles quite regularly, so it's just a bit of a pain for me to have to get a torque screwdriver out rather than just using a normal Allen key to change these over. But DNT Optics tell me that there's a quick release mount coming out, so that will be on my list so that I can switch this over. So really, then I can't complain about that, can I? I guess the only other thing that you know, people might find a con, I don't think I particularly do, but is the change of the batteries. I mean, never seen or heard of a 21700 battery before I got this. I mean, I'm used to using the 18650s, so I guess if people have got a lot of the 18650s around, they might say, oh, I'm going to have to get new batteries for this unit. But batteries are provided, so it's not really a, you know, a big negative. But I guess it's something that people might be niggled by, I don't know. But say the mount and the batteries are the only two things that I could think that anybody would mention. So what do I particularly like about it then? Well, I must say I prefer the new menu system compared to what was on the version 1. It's very similar to what was on the Thermite when I reviewed that. I think that's very well designed and very intuitive. There's still a couple of items that really don't need to be there, could be even more simplified. They don't need to have the reticle colour change on that menu, and they don't need to have the screen brightness, because those are much easier to adjust outside from the button pads out of the menus. I like the new button layout. Makes a lot more sense to me, putting the power button at the top and putting the record button at the bottom. And the change that they've made to the control system with the up, down and the back and the OK button, that makes a lot more sense than on the version 1. And it's just much simpler to use. You don't have to even think about it or look where your fingers are. You can feel these buttons, and even with gloves on, you can feel where the 4 buttons are, and that works very well in my opinion. The audio recording seems to have been improved, certainly with regard to the Thermite. One of the criticisms that I had on that was I found that the audio recording level was very loud, and I did mention it to DNT Optics. Don't know whether they changed it, but certainly in this unit, the audio level, well, you've heard the audio recorded through the scope. It's much crisper. It's not too loud. There's no distortion and clipping like I was getting with that. So that's all good. The final thing as well is I like the fact that we've done away with the memory card. I mean, I do my videos and record my videos on old phones. So to get to those recordings, I just plug a USB cable into my computer and then download straight off of there. So I'm used to that format. So I much prefer the idea here that you can just plug straight into this unit. It pops up in your File Explorer, and you can download the files directly instead of having to take an SD card out and put it in the little card converter and plug it in the USB slot and all that. So I find that is a bit more user friendly as far as I'm concerned. And I think basically user friendliness is what this update is all about. I think all of these little changes just combine to make this a much more user friendly unit compared to the version 1. So yeah, I think they've done a good job with the updates. It's definitely an improvement, and I like this little unit a lot. So if you already own a version 1, would you sell that or go out and replace it with one of these? Well, in that case, I'm not so sure about that. I guess it depends what you use the Zulus for. If you're a content creator, you might benefit from the improvement in the video quality, the slight improvement in the video quality, I guess. If you're a hunter, you might find it easier if you're using gloves and you have a difficulty with the mag wheel using this setup. So, you know, there might be cases where, yeah, it would be beneficial for you to upgrade. I mean, that's something that you'd have to think about and make that decision for yourself. But if you don't have a Zulus and you've been thinking about buying one, then I think that you should go version 2 all the way. I think that you'll have, the version 1 is great, don't get me wrong, but I think you'll have a much better user experience if you go straight into the version 2. So I guess that wraps it all up really. I don't know what else to say about this. Great little unit, and yeah, I would recommend it quite highly if you're in the market for a digital day and night scope. So just to clarify where we are with this product and availability then, today is a launch day, and this is basically the preview day for the new product. You're not going to be able to buy one of these until it's up on the DNT website, which I'm told will be the 2nd of July. When it does go live for sales on the 2nd of July, the first production run of these units has been dedicated to the LRF version with the ballistic calculator. So they're the ones you'll be able to buy straight away. Once that production run's completed, then they will do a production run of this version, the base version without the LRF. So you'll have to wait a little bit longer if you want the non-LRF version. If you want to check out DNT Optics products today with a view to getting a version 1 of the Zulus, then I've stuck the QR code up. I know a lot of you watch the videos, YouTube videos on your TV, and you can't access links in the description from your TV. So if you scan the QR code with your phone, just put the video on pause or scan it while you're watching. That will take you to the UK site where you can check out the current deals on the Zulus. And as from the 2nd of July, you'll be able to place your order for one of these. Well, we've come to the end of this video then. Firstly, I want to thank you for joining me. Really appreciate your support. If you made it this far, I hope you found that interesting. Did try and cover everything in as much detail as I can so you get a good overview of what this scope is all about. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, then please give me a thumbs up to like the video. It does help the channel promote to other people. And if you haven't subscribed, which is usually about 50% of you, then please subscribe to the channel. It does help me out, and it doesn't cost you anything. So hopefully I will see you on the next one. But for now, I'm just going to say bye for now.